Hello and welcome back to the Ecuador Insider Podcast. The crew is back, joined by Brandon, Carl. Carl is back from a hiatus, a family vacation in the great north of his home country, Canada.
Did you say hiatus?
Hiatus? Yes.
Never heard that word before.
Carl is French-Canadian. Don't hold it against him. But no, Carl just got back from vacation in Canada. We're going to do a fun episode today comparing the sometimes hilarious differences between the quote-unquote Western world and Ecuador or Latin America, but it's really Ecuador. Every country is different. So we're going to talk about some of that, those quirks and those funny things, and get into also some of the actual important stuff, right, that makes life here different and for us, more enjoyable, really, than back home. But that's what today's episode is. So welcome back, guys. I guess you have been here. Welcome back, Carl. Good to be back here with you both. Thank you all for tuning in. Come down and join us July 21st for our next Vilcabamba lifestyle retreat. It is a 9-day retreat hosted at Vilcabamba, a beautiful hosteria here in the Valley of Longevity, Vilcabamba. And it is a 9-day crash course on life in Ecuador, life in Vilcabamba. It gives you first-hand experience, first-hand knowledge of everything really that you need to know if you want to live here or not. We're on our 5th retreat, I believe. Mm-hmm. The experiences have been incredible for the participants to date. We've had a great time hosting. We'd love to see you down here. More information in the link, so please check that out.
While you're at it, stop right now, pause the video, hit subscribe if you're not subscribed, guys. It helps us out. We'd love to have you as a subscriber. Hit the bell icon to be notified of our future content. And give us a thumbs up if you're liking this series, if you're liking this podcast. Give us a thumbs up. And we'd love to have your support.
Yep. And it's actually a miracle that we're sitting here today, because I had heard on the internet that Vilcabamba had devolved into a terrorist hell. I don't know if you guys had heard that or not.
Yeah,
I think everyone's dead, I believe.
Right. Dead and robbed and
right.
And in prison in cartels.
So I don't know. I think this is a blue screen actually, because we're really not in Vilcabamba because of how scary it is. But
we're on the moon.
We're on the moon, right? I mean, I'm completely joking, but good gosh, the amount of hyperbolic madness that I keep seeing on the internet put out by people who do not live here, who do not live in Vilcabamba, I think in most cases have not stepped foot in Vilcabamba, and are scaring the crap out of people. Listen, believe it, don't believe it, that's up to you, but I just highly recommend come down, check it out, see if it's true or not. As 3 people who live here, I promise you that story is false. So anyways, I had to get...
And don't get it wrong. There is crime in the world. There's crime in Vilcabamba. There's crime everywhere. Nobody's portraying this paradise that nothing ever bad happens. It doesn't exist in the world. That's not. So don't make that false, dichotomy choice. It's binary. Oh, no, it's not one or the other. There are things here, but it's generally safe here. We love it here. If it wasn't, I wouldn't leave my family here. If it felt that way. I don't know about you guys. Maybe you guys would say, I'm going to fight through. We're going to fight this.
No.
Yeah, so I don't know. Make your own opinion, guys, but take it with a grain of salt. Even ours. Take ours with a grain of salt. Yeah. Come down and check it out for yourself. That's probably the best advice.
100%. It reminds me of the 6 o'clock news. It's like, right. Here's the scary stuff from today, right? It's like that kind of energy. And you can fall into that about anything, right? Yeah. Like we can be terrified about Russia and Ukraine. We can be terrified about, the Trump supporters or the Black Lives Matter or whoever, whatever group you decide to be afraid of.
The next disease,
the crime in your city, anything you want to be afraid of, you can.
Global warming.
And there are folks shouting about what to be afraid of. So if you want to tune into that and do that, you can. I don't judge you. Do your thing, but it's just not reality here. So anyways, that off my chest. Let's jump into it.
Feel better?
A little bit lighter, a little bit lighter. I mean,
nice.
My chest will never be what your guys' chest is. But
look at this size. Carl can barely fit in the frame. Look at the size of this guy.
Oh, come on.
He's a giant Canadian bull horse.
He is.
I don't even know what a bull horse is.
But he's one. It's Carl. It's a bull horse. No, I mean, we literally moved the camera back
To
to
fit
fit
Carl
these
in.
guys in the frame. I was recording here with Joko and Ide recently. You guys might have caught those episodes. The camera was 12 inches closer, and we were in the frame, not shoulders cut off. So anyways. All right, guys. So, yeah, again, welcome back. Thanks for tuning in. We really would appreciate the like, comment, share on the video. Let's jump right into it. So, Carl, first of all, welcome back. How was the vacation? It's windy. If you guys, you know what, I may even pause this and put on the
Windshield.
the windshield if it's here, which I think it is not, so never mind. So hopefully you're hearing us. It is windy season. That has started here. Does not mean every day is windy, but in the summer, in generally speaking, July and August, you get some stretches that are windy, so it can be a little bit breezy this time of year. A lot of people really like it this time of year as well because we don't get any rain. We're into dry season, so it can be, you can get that high and dry sort of atmosphere where it's sunny a lot of the time, and it just feels really good. The air feels good, but it can get breezy, can get a little cooler this time of year. Today is beautiful, as most days are. Anyways, how was your vacation, man?
Yeah, we had a really good time. We traveled a lot. We went to 3 different places in British Columbia, Victoria, Vancouver Island, Montreal, Quebec. So a lot of traveling, a lot of flights, a lot of moving around, ferries, buses, etc., etc. So there was some stress related to that, right? We had some issues on the way back. Our flight got canceled. But overall, we had a really great trip. It was great to see family. I hadn't been back home to Quebec for 11 years. That's how long I hadn't been back to see my family. I hadn't seen my brother for 10 years. When he came to visit me here 10 years ago in Ecuador.
Oh, he came here 10 years ago.
Right,
Okay,
right. Yeah, so that was special. That was very special for me to see family, close family, extended family. And yeah, it was nice. It was nice to go there with a different perspective, for sure, different outlook on life in general. I had been back in Canada 6 years ago, but I hadn't been back home to my hometown. Yeah, it was not, I brought a different perspective than the last time I was there, for sure. And so that's what we're talking about today. We'll talk about some of the pros, some of the cons, some of the differences between the Western world here, some of the things I've noticed. I made a little list. We'll go through it, and but overall it was good times.
Hey, Carl, did you had an you haven't been back in so long. You had an expectation on what you thought it was going to be like.
Mm-hmm.
Did talk about how because again that could give some insight into people that haven't been here and what they hear, because they see social media, they see that, they have an expectation on what it's going to be like to live in South America or Ecuador or anywhere in the world, and then you actually go and you have a different experience. So you haven't been home
Right.
in 10 years, 11 years. You had this expectation of what it's going to be like. Like, can you talk about, like, was it what you expected? Was it different than what you expected? Was it worse, better? Is it not even a worse, better thing? Is it just...
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I could say both. I can see the pros and cons of the Western world in a sense, right?
Sure.
I used to be like very negative about Canada is going in that direction, and I want to be out of the rat race, and I decided to live here. I could see why people choose to live there. There's lovely things about it.
Sure.
And I could also see why people would be somewhat culture shocked if they live there when they come here.
Sure.
Because things are different. We're going to talk about some of those differences. But overall, there's many reasons why we choose to live here. This is our home. This is a place we chose. We prefer it here. Basically, that's how it goes. But we're not opposed to going back and visiting. We'll talk about a lot, of those differences in the list there. So.
Cool. Well, let's jump into it, man.
Yeah.
What are those differences? Let's
Cool.
Let's get
well,
right into
I made a little list. It's not, of course, complete. There's more probably we can talk about, but I think all of us have experiences relating to these things. So, first things on the list here is debit, credit card versus cash and change. But one thing I noticed right away in Canada is very few people still even use cash. Cash is very rare. You have to almost request it to get it. You go to the store, you're using your card, your debit or your credit card. There's now places where you self-check out, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or there's no teller that scans all your items. You scan them yourself, and you use your card typically. This does not exist here.
I think you said you scam them yourself,
you
which
scan.
is a great Freudian slip. But yeah, go ahead.
I might have, you scan them yourself, but yeah, there's no self-checkout here anywhere in Ecuador, even in big supermarkets. And you can use your debit card in Loja and some of the bigger stores, but in Vilcabamba, it's basically useless. You need to use cash in
Pretty
most
much,
places.
yeah. A few restaurants, but yeah.
Yeah, there might be a few restaurants, but overall,
I saw Brandon pull out his credit card at El Mexicano one day. I was like, wow.
Yeah. Mexicano, El Mexicano.
Nice.
But they charge you.
They do, yeah, of
Yeah,
course.
yeah, they
There's an
charge
extra
you the
fee,
fee.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, whereas here, change can be an issue. Yeah,
Great restaurant, by the way. El Mexicano.
Fabulous
Shout out to Raul.
Yes.
Definitely eat there if you come down here. It's consistently really good Mexican food.
Yeah, like I said, change can be an issue here. You go to the store and they don't have change for your $20 bill, and they're like, "Well, I don't have change. Can you go find some change?" Right?
Right.
You run around trying to get coins from a taxi driver.
I don't do that. I just look at them like I'm gonna murder them if they don't go do that, and they go do it.
Right.
It's funny. I was talking to Tiff yesterday. Because we were talking about change, and in the States we refer to change as just coins, like that's change. And then here, anything less than a 20 is change because you can't find it half the time, right?
Yeah.
Nobody has change for less than a 20.
So let's define that, right? So back home, and you're right, it's mostly all plastic now. But
Right.
but back home, back in the day,
Right.
it's hilarious that that's back in the day now. But back in the day,
When I was young,
This-
I'm not
the
a
kid
kid
anymore,
anymore.
but-
Sometimes I
but,
wish I was a kid again.
I want to get into the Beavis and Butthead reference now, but I'm not gonna. Stay focused. Back in the day, you know, the stores, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, would go to the banks in the morning and they would pick up change. They would pick up coins and like change to have change and always have that available. People do not do that here. So if you go to a store, especially early in the morning, you can expect that they're not going to be able to make change, and it can be quite an inconvenience. Like, you can stand there for 5 or 10 minutes while they go store to store looking for coins so that they can give you your change. Half the time I'm just like, I'll come back, we'll get it, we'll deal with it tomorrow, like, it's all good. But it's hilarious.
Yeah. And a few things that comes to mind. A lot of times, if they don't have change but they know you, they're like, just pay me later.
Yeah, that happens all the
Pay
time.
me
You know,
tomorrow,
right?
pay me.
They trust you'll come back.
Yep.
That happens to me all the time. Another tip of advice for me, when I don't have change, you go to taxi drivers. They typically will have a lot of change. They'll change bills for you. Another advice that I found out only last year, I didn't know about this, but I'm assuming in all big cities in Ecuador, but definitely in Cuenca, but I'm sure at Quito and Guayaquil is the same. You can go to the central bank building, and they have an ATM machine there, and you can put your bills, and they'll give you change for your bills. So last time we were there, we turned, I think it was like $160.
Oh, really?
Into
You
change.
really
Just
were?
into dollars.
Oh, that's
They give you $1.50 coins.
Nice.
And maybe even 25 cents. They just, all this change comes out. You feel like you won the lottery.
Right.
Just put a bill in.
Slot machine.
Everybody in the U.S.
Right, the
that's
slot
watching, the
Yeah, I
old
was gonna say
Sacagawea $1 coins, those little kind of coppery, goldy looking $1 coins, and all the JFK 50-cent pieces, they're all here. They're all here. I have a
Right.
wallet full of them.
If you're conspiratorially minded, you could look into the history of that. It's kind of funny, but the timing of it is funny. But yes, they are all here. That is true.
Yeah, and I have an anecdote. When we came back, just this trip, we flew into Guayaquil. We land there. We knew we had a bunch of suitcases, so I wanted to get a little cart to be able to push our suitcases. So I go to the teller, and he's like, "Well, I only had my debit card. I didn't have any U.S. dollars on me because I use cards everywhere. So I had Canadian debit card, U.S. But they're like, no, we can't do that. I'm like, oh, okay. Is there anywhere I can get change? Is there an ATM and stuff? He's like, yeah, just go out there and there's an ATM. You can get some change there. I'm like, okay, cool. Are they gonna allow me to come back here? He's like, no. Once you're out, you can't come back. So I'm like, why do you give me this piece of advice that's not useful? And we had to scramble and figure out how to. We found like a bunch of coins, all over the place in our luggages, and we're able to find $2 to be able to pay for the cart.
Where was? At the
This was
Quito,
in Guayaquil,
Guayaquil Airport.
Yeah, we're in the baggage claim areas. You have those carts, but this is like
That's like
it
a
felt
microcosm of Ecuador.
It is.
Exactly,
Right?
exactly.
No, I wanted
much
to.
so.
I wanted to jump in on that for a second because people here. First of all, the people here are freaking lovely. Like, the people here are awesome, right? I just took a trip to Zumba Tuesday. Today is Thursday. And, I'm asking for directions and I'm chatting with people. People are so friendly. They're so kind. They're so nice. They're so happy to help you. I just love the people in this country. Some of the sweetest, kindest people, I don't know, on earth. I haven't done that much traveling, but certainly a big difference between that and what I was used to. People here are amazing. But that is a hilarity here, right? People will answer you very directly, based on your question.
Right.
They will not factor in what is he trying to accomplish or understand, and how can I help him do that. They will answer your question.
Right.
So-
authentically,
Authentically,
and,
right. Yeah.
believing that this is what you're asking for, so I'm going to give it to you. I'm
Yep.
very happy to give it to you.
Yep.
But
Which as a foreigner can be very frustrating until you figure out how to
Right.
do it.
Yep.
Like, because you can be in a government office and like, where do I go next? You go there next. But they didn't tell you got to go and get out this and fill out this and do this and
Right.
16 other things. And
Before you can even go.
Then you go back and you're like, oh, well, was I supposed to fill this out? Yes. And they'll just answer. But, anyways, yeah.
Yeah. All right. Nice. I think we said enough about that. Number 2. All right. So one thing that stood out, growing lawns versus growing gardens and fruit trees.
That's a great one.
That is a good one.
Yeah, I mean, we live in the rural areas. It's a little different than the cities, but where we were in Canada, even Victoria, BC, and everywhere we went, basically, everyone has a manicured, well-groomed lawn with maybe a few flowers and plants.
And in a lot of places, that's under city ordinance. Like, there
Right.
could be zoning that says
Weeds can't be this
Right,
high,
right,
grass
right,
can't be this
Yeah,
high.
yeah. I noticed everyone's lawn was manicured where we
Sure,
were. Like,
sure.
I don't.
it's like a
It would be
competition.
odd. It would be odd to see anyone's lawn not
Right.
being perfectly,
Yeah.
cut. Whereas here, doesn't happen. Nobody has lawns basically in the countryside. I mean, you have maybe Brendan has a lawn where you live.
No,
there's a bit of a lawn here.
There's grass. I mean, there's lawns. There's just not that like suburban manicured lawn
Edged
look.
and
Right,
trimmed
right.
and
Right.
no anything else full of weed killer and
But
Right, right.
everywhere you go, though, you got fruit trees, you got mango trees, you've got some what are those? Nísperos,
Yeah.
right? And
Banana
most local people
trees.
grow food,
Right.
not lawns, basically. So that's the
Yeah.
common cultural traditional thing to do here is you grow bananas, you grow corn, you grow.
Right. You have
your
chickens running around.
in your
Yeah.
backyard. It's kind of messy sometimes, right?
Yeah.
People's fruit forests are all over the place. There's a lot of
Coffee
different things
and,
growing.
Yeah, all kinds
Yeah.
of stuff.
But it works,
Citrus.
and you could go and pick your food from your lawn rather than grow grass.
Yeah.
No, I mean, dude, we have a little piece of land in Guatuche, which is about 17 minutes from Vilcabamba towards Tumianuma on the back road or on the road to Tumianuma.
They're paving that road, right?
They are paving that road.
Yeah, nice. That's awesome, right?
It is awesome.
Because it's a beautiful stretch of country here that is the roads. I wouldn't say it's like the worst road ever, but it's bumpy, it's rocky, and
It's
the-
dirt. I mean, it's dirt road.
It's a dirt
It's
road.
a good dirt, very good dirt.
Right.
But, yeah.
But it's like some beautiful, beautiful country to see and beautiful. I mean, I would live there. Like if the road was
live there in a
paved.
second, yeah.
If the road was paved, I would live there. Like that's for me.
No, that's good.
Yeah. Well, it's about to get paved. So.
Right,
Right.
right.
Which is
That's
awesome.
that stretch between, I would say between like, I don't know, Moyacocha really, maybe a little bit before there, and Tumianuma, or even Kinara, even as probably Tumianuma, or just past Tumianuma. That's one of my favorite areas in this region because it's still very sparsely populated.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's still not a lot of people, and it's a little cheaper.
Right.
And it's beautiful,
Right.
and it's a little drier, and the soil tends to be really good,
Yep.
and
Yep.
it's still close to Vilcabamba, and like and there's rivers,
Right
and
on
like
the river, yeah.
Anyways, I have this little piece of land in Guatuche, on the river. It's a very small, you got 1,200 square meter, but there's a whole bunch of fruit trees growing on it. We've been going out there on Saturdays, climbing up in the orange trees, so you're like up, 10, 15 feet off the ground, out on branches of orange trees. Basically, making those noises with my 2- and 4-year-old, like exactly, tossing oranges down, filling up bags of oranges, and then having sweet, delicious orange juice for the week.
great.
It's great. Like it's great. Yeah.
Yeah.
These are the kind of things for me that make Ecuador in this area, make it fun living here.
Yeah, it's so funny talking about trees and everything. We were driving back from Guayaquil, and my son was there sitting by the window, and he was like, "Oh, look at all these trees! They look really fun to climb." Because he's grown here climbing trees.
Right,
Like,
right, right.
He's
So
really good at
awesome.
climbing trees. Like I'm not that good at climbing. Like
You're a little
these
big
kids,
for
these
tree
kids are like
climbing.
climbing trees all the time here. So that's part of the life, right? And every you go to the park, the Coliseum, where all the kids play. There's a giant mango tree there. When it's in season, all the kids climb and pick mangoes and eat the mangoes. It's one of the great things.
They have little spots in there where they go and they hang out in the trees,
Right.
in the park.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah. All right. So, I noticed in Canada, tips were expected everywhere you go. It's not priced in, right?
Just realized that.
It's crazy. That's what's funny
Wild,
about this. Right. I know. It's like when you were earlier talking about, there's no cashiers at some checkouts. I'm like,
No shit.
No shit.
That's how long I've been here.
So hold on, I gotta do this. So Carl showed up as a 1920,
I was 20 when I
as a
arrived in Ecuador.
20-year-old vegan
That's right.
hippie, rocking this,
Wearing this.
and he's been here ever since.
Like,
And he's put on 100 pounds, and has changed everything about his life completely.
now this was
But
a core piece of equipment in your
This
in
was
your
a
wardrobe?
trademark. This was a
it
trademark.
was a trademark. It was.
Yeah, it helped me with my chocolate business actually.
Yeah.
People would recognize me and
Carl,
be like,
you were known
"He's over there."
at Chocolate Ball Carl,
Chocolate Carl. was
Chocolate
my
Carl.
nickname.
Chocolate Carl,
For
rainbow
years.
vest.
or Rainbow Vest, yeah.
Well,
Like, this is known. Like, people in Vilcabamba
Oh, yeah.
have
It's
told me
iconic.
about Carl's
Yeah,
rainbow
yeah,
vest.
yeah. I mean, it's kind of beautiful, actually.
Is this the
I did
actual
buy it in
vest?
Ecuador.
This
Did
is
you?
this
This
is
is the vest.
literally
This
the
is the
vest.
vest,
No
yeah.
kidding.
Yeah.
and actually, I give it away to someone, and I had to ask for it back, and luckily they still had it.
Does it fit you anymore?
No,
not
well,
really.
Let's see. Try it on, Carl. Come on. Try it on, Carl.
I'll
Try
do
it
I'll
on,
do
Carl.
Yeah, I recently got this back, but yeah, this was the
It's like
rainbow vest.
it's like it should be in a museum, a Vilcabamba museum.
Anyways, I think,
Nice.
you could see
This is
it.
gonna be worth a lot of money one day,
Right.
bro.
It's a historical
So-
relic.
For me, it is. It has sentimental value. I'm not planning on wearing it, but I will potentially put it on the wall one day.
Right. Or sell it at auction. That might be the.
We'll autograph it first.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, that was 11 years ago. I came here
Anyway.
wearing,
All right.
wearing the rainbow vest and
Nice.
whatnot.
So did people tip you selling chocolate balls in the rainbow vest?
Not really, no. And that was the point. In Ecuador, tips are not expected. People are extremely grateful when you tip them. Right? Like they don't expect the tip. And you go to the grocery store.
Or
you
sometimes
buy,
they look at you like.
Right. Is that for me? I mean, you go to the grocery store, Supermaxi, the biggest grocery store in Loja, right? You get $100, $200 worth of groceries. There's a guy that will go all the way to your car, drop off your groceries, and if you don't give him a tip, he walks off and right away. He's not expecting you to tip him. I always tip them.
Oh, yeah, of
Yeah.
course.
They're very thankful though every time
Yeah.
you do, right?
Very grateful. Yep.
So yeah, it's interesting. So I wouldn't say come here and just don't tip anyone. I think people, as I said, are extremely grateful when you do, and they probably serve you better next time you go if they know that you might give them a
Yeah.
tip.
Sorry, I didn't mean to
No,
interrupt.
go ahead.
There's a fine line there, though. So, the U.S. obviously you tip everywhere. I come from New York, where I think there's even an added element of tipping and paying for everything, right? Someone does you a favor, it's like boom, boom, boom. That's just how life in New York is. Probably most cities, I would imagine. Here, and so I came with that mentality. And really funny anecdote. I'm in Santa Marianita, which is just south of Manta. When I first got to Ecuador, and we're on the beach, and we had this place where they make great seafood, and so we're having fried fish one day, and I go to pay, and I pay, and he gives me back the change, and I hand him a tip, and he looks at it and looks at me and hands it back to me. He has no idea what I'm doing. Like, he just like, why are you giving this to me? This is yours here, right? And I'm like, no. I'm like, no. I don't speak Spanish at the time. I'm like, no, it's for you. He thought it was so funny. He starts laughing. He's like, yeah. He's like laughing. Like he didn't know what I was doing, right? So it definitely is not a culture to tip here. But anyways, the fine line I want to get into, right? So, you can tip, absolutely, and there's certain situations where I think it's good to tip. Like, for example, if you're eating at a restaurant where people are working there, where it's not family owned, it's actual, there's wait staff, they're just on basic salary, right? So they're making like $450 a month. You leave them a couple of bucks, like, they're going to appreciate it. That's a tip. That's a nice thing to do. Most people don't here, but it's certainly acceptable. There's nothing wrong with doing that. I do that. I think it's good to do. If you're eating an almuerzo at like what most restaurants are, which is like the wife's cooking, the husband's serving, the kids are running around, they might be cleaning tables or whatever. It's just kind of one of those. If you pay your $2 or your $3 or whatever the almuerzo costs, and you hand them an extra $1, they're gonna appreciate it. They're gonna look at you like thank you, and you're gonna get a little bit of the reputation as the guy that doesn't care about his money, right? The guy that's like he's got so much money he gives it away, because people don't tip here. So it's not like a par for the course thing. It's sort of like, well, why is he giving his money away?
Yeah.
Right? So there is a fine line there.
Yeah. I mean, I think most restaurants now have maybe a little tip jar on the counter.
At least in Vilcabamba, but I think that's because there's so many foreigners here that people started to figure out, like, oh, people tip. Like, yeah.
No, it could be.
I guess one of the other things I would tip for is if somebody goes above and beyond. Like if I have, I hurt my knee and I couldn't carry some water jugs in, and I asked our friendly taxi driver, and he went and picked them up and brought them all and delivered them. So I gave him an extra couple bucks.
Totally.
For doing stuff like that on top of what his normal fare would be for the time and stuff. So like I think tipping like that is fine, but I've heard bad stories once you get the reputation of, you have so much money you give it away, then people start expecting you to do that, and and you can get taken advantage of that way.
Well, and so the culture here is so kind, it's so sweet. Gifts here are great, right? Gifts are very common. Like I remember a friend of mine, a great guy from Yangana, which is a half an hour south of here. He's a police officer, and he wanted a holster for a pistol, right? And this was years ago, and I was traveling back to the States, and he very humbly asked me, he's like, listen, I really want this holster, I can't get it here, like, is there any way? And I'm like, yeah, of course, like, I'll just order it off Amazon, you give me the money, I'll bring it back for you, no problem, right? So I go back, I'm in the States for however long I was there, I come back, and when I go to meet him, and he's got the Yangana cheese, right, which is kind of famous-ish in this area, as a gift, as a thank you, right? So the thank you gifts here are very common and appreciated, and it's sort of one of the ways the culture handles that stuff.
That's true.
Even though they don't tip a lot. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, actually, it's considered. Gifts are very common. Like
very common, yeah.
And usually it's fruits, it's food, it's maybe something homemade that they made or something, right? Interesting. Good. Yeah,
which is it's very indicative of the culture in general, right? It's a very heart-centered culture in many ways. It's not a money-centered culture, right? It's not that in the cities that's not so much the case, and people care about money, and it's not paradise, but in the U.S. everything's based on money, everything, absolutely everything. And here it's really not. It's just not. It's based on relationships and who you are as a person and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, definitely. Time isn't money here.
Yeah. Actually, on a kind of a side note, I wanted to say that earlier. I noticed in Canada, and I don't know if it's the same in the U.S., but I feel like since the last time I was there 11 years ago, that that businesses have trained their staff to be overly customer service, overly friendly with the people that come in. Like every time I would go into the store and, good morning, how are you? Is there anything we can do for you today? Are you looking for something in particular? Like they kind of do that. I don't know if it's it's Canada mostly, or I don't know.
Yeah, I mean,
was it always like that? Was it always like that?
It's gotten less like that.
It's gotten less?
Yes.
Oh, that's funny.
Yes.
Okay, well, anyways. Whereas here it's not so much like that.
No, I mean, here you got to fight to get, your fork before they bring the food.
Right.
You got to call the waiter because you've been waiting 10 minutes for another drink.
Right.
It's great.
Interesting.
Yeah. Other funny thing, I think on the humor train here, this next one, it might be one of the funniest.
Yeah. Oh, the next one.
Sure. Next one,
yeah. Well, the next one, the first part of it is bring your own toilet paper. So this might sound completely strange, but not all places, but a lot of, I guess, more family-owned restaurants, or I don't know. We were in Saraguro recently. We drove through Saraguro on the way back here. Went to this restaurant, beautiful place, and you go to the bathroom and there's no toilet paper.
The restaurant was beautiful, or Saraguro was beautiful?
Both of them were.
Okay.
I guess Runawasi.
There was no
Give 'em a shout
toilet
out.
paper in Runawaza?
Didn't have any toilet paper.
But they just ran out. That's not normal.
They probably just ran out. But a lot of places, you go to public bathrooms here, there's no toilet paper.
That's not true at all. They
have to buy it.
Yes. You give them
the
10
entrance.
cents,
Right.
and they give you the toilet paper.
Right.
But
Which
it's,
is great.
Have you not been not been in a situation where you showed up at the toilet and there was no toilet paper?
100
well,
times.
Yeah.
100 times.
Right. Well, I mean, I know to check because yeah.
I just bring it with now. Like Tiff,
Right.
put it in your purse. I put it in a backpack. I got toilet paper everywhere. Wet wipes and toilet paper.
Right.
And I'm
I'm
assuming
a
the
big
reason-
wet wipes guy.
I'm assuming the reason is some people that maybe just steal it or something.
Probably,
So
yeah.
they don't want to just, they have
Yeah, I
this
mean,
issue.
toilet seats also.
Sometimes there's no toilet seat.
A lot of times there's no toilet seat because apparently people jack toilet
Right.
seats.
Well, you just hover.
Yeah, you hover. It's really good for your thigh
Right.
muscles.
Yeah.
Like,
It's a nice
Right.
squatting position. Yeah.
But once you make sure you got your toilet paper, you do your thing in the bathroom, don't flush the toilet paper.
What?
This is a rule here, a known rule. There's people.
that's not true in many cities, but in most of the country. Yeah.
Right. And our references are more the countryside.
Yeah. I'm just
situations
yeah.
overall. I'm just,
No, 100%.
But yeah, you're not supposed to flush the toilet paper. The way they do the piping, the way they do the septic, there's reasons for it. I still don't know exactly what the reason is, but you're expected.
Well, they
to put
don't
it-
pump septic tanks,
Right.
so I think that has something to do
That's
with it.
right. Whereas like once you live here for a while, you're used to.
Oh my God, dude. We were just in Mexico for those 10 days.
You're throwing in the trash.
And I'm sitting there and I'm throwing toilet paper into the wastebasket. I'm like, oh my God, what am I doing?
And then you're like, wow, I don't have to do that anymore.
All right,
Or sometimes there's not a trash can.
Right? Yeah. I'm like, where am I
Where
gonna
do
put
I
this?
do? The turn down service comes in. They're like a bleeping campesino.
What's crazy is when I first heard about this, I'm like, oh my God, does everything smell? Does I'm like, this place has got to smell terribly. Everybody's house has got to stink. Like, how is this a thing? How do people live like this? And then now you've got a basket in the bathroom with a cover. It doesn't smell. You would never know. Like if nobody told you, you wouldn't know that.
Yeah.
There's used toilet paper in there, and you change it when when it's full.
It takes some getting used to, and
it
then
does.
and then it's totally normal. Yeah.
It's so
And
weird.
but that being said, you can build a house and set it up to where
Oh,
you
yeah,
can flush
yeah,
your
no
toilet
problem,
paper.
right.
and there are
It's
places
not-
you can go where you can
Yeah,
flush.
Yeah, it's funny. It's
Right.
funny.
So bring your toilet paper, but don't flush it.
Don't
Like
flush.
Right.
you never thought you were gonna hear that bullet point as a topic of conversation, did you?
The next
And
go ahead.
maybe to a different level, maybe some people might be really into that. You can actually compost your toilet paper and use it for your garden.
People do that, composting
So I
toilets.
think
yeah.
that's maybe it's better for the environment not to flush it.
The
Talk
next
of them.
one, the next one is one of my favorite things
Oh,
about
let's
living
see.
in this country.
Yeah.
Speed limits are only, or
Suggestion.
signs as well, are only a recommendation. Or speed limits. Sorry, I'm actually reading two at the same time. Speed limits are just a suggestion. Yeah, baby.
Yeah.
I mean, it's awesome though. Like you don't have to drive around looking over your shoulder. Am I about to get pulled over because I'm 8 miles an hour over the speed limit?
Yeah, and actually the speed limits in many instances don't make sense. Have you noticed? Like it's
Back
it's
home
like
either.
30 kilometers an hour, and most people are driving like 80 to 100 in that area.
Right,
But for
right.
some reason the sign says 30. I mean, I've noticed a lot of times you follow the signs, you'll get there like twice as it'll take you an hour and a half to go to Loja.
Right.
It's like a good experiment.
Actually, yeah.
Jesse
so-
can get to Loja in like 25 minutes.
I know. Last time I
Carl
almost
gets
threw
there
up.
in 18. But no, the police cars don't have radar guns, right? So there's no law enforcement enforcing speed. There is a handful of speed cameras in locations around the country. Most of them are very clearly marked. Like there was none in Loja for many years. Now they have two or three in Loja, but there's like 300 meters before the sign. There's a sign that
Photo
says there's a
radar.
photo radar,
Right.
and then there's two more signs. I mean, if you get a ticket at that point, that's on you. But yeah, it's really nice to be able to drive around sort of unmolested by traffic cops.
Yeah, and you can drive slowly if you want. Right?
Yeah.
Lots of people do.
But yeah, driving's a little different here for sure. The next one is stop signs are only a recommendation. Kind of in the same topic here. Anecdote: I was in Canada. I drove my sister's car in the city, and she was, sitting with me. And she's like, Carl, you have to stop at the stop sign. You have to immobilize. Like, what are you doing? Like, you can get arrested for this, right? Whereas here, I mean, maybe in the city, if you're
No,
never.
No.
People will kind of half stop, or sometimes.
No, or not at all.
Or not. It's like a rolling, slow kind of semi-slow down.
No, I mean, it literally just means there's an intersection.
Yeah.
Right.
Like,
Pay attention.
Pay attention.
Right.
Yeah.
So it takes a little time to get used to. I mean, for some who are used to fully stopping at the stop sign.
Which for me back home was such a nuisance, right? Like I grew up in Vermont, in rural Vermont, not a ton of traffic, and if you go into town, but like not a ton of traffic. And you got stop signs everywhere, and you have to come to an absolute full, complete stop prior to the stop sign, or you risk a ticket if a cop sees you.
No, it doesn't happen out here.
Not here. No.
All right.
By the way, they will get you on seat belts here, and they will get you on cell phones. So they will, if they see you talking on your phone, you will get a ticket for that. Of course, you can bribe your way out of it if you want to, but you will get a ticket for that. You will get a ticket for seat belt. There are traffic violations. They just don't bother with stop signs and speed limits.
Have you guys heard anybody about the passenger not having the front seat passenger getting a ticket?
But I think the back seats don't need that.
Yeah, so
I thought they changed that, but I'm not sure.
Okay.
All the taxi drivers, because I've been asking every taxi driver about this now, and they all said in the front only if I don't have a seatbelt, I'll get a ticket, and nobody in the back seat. Most of them say even the passenger.
Oh, so it's still that way. Okay.
Or at least that's how it's enforced. Maybe that's not the law anymore, but
interesting.
They're not worried about. I'm like, cause I'll see like, do you want me to put my seatbelt on? No, you're fine. It's just me.
Oh, really?
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, or if there's a traffic stop.
Yeah.
Right. Like if there's the police is stopping people, then people quickly put their seatbelt on.
Yeah.
You know what all these things have made me realize too is that people stay safe based on not wanting to die. It's not the legalities, that keep people safe. Because I mean, you see people here riding around 5 people on a motorcycle, 2, a baby, a child, a husband and wife. And,
it's great.
And you see them people walking all over on the sides of the road that have no shoulder.
It's insane.
And almost never is there ever an issue.
Right.
Like they're not getting run over. People are not getting run over.
Yeah.
The motorcycles are not. Babies aren't dying all the time on motorcycles at all. People here pay no attention to traffic rules whatsoever. There's not a ton of accidents at all. Like I think there's more accidents back home.
Right. I'd be surprised. Yeah, I'd be interested in seeing the statistics.
Right.
Because
It would
it's
be
very
interesting,
rare that you see an accident.
Right.
Of course, it does happen.
But people are generally, they're more focused. Like you're more focused. You're paying attention to driving. You're paying attention to your surroundings. You're paying attention to where you're walking. Like all that stuff, people are just more living, paying attention in that moment versus in the States.
I think it's the nature of the roads too. They're windy.
It's forcing you to be
on the road.
focused. Right.
Whereas if it's a straight line, you kind of like you zone out a bit.
Right. And that's where, and if you're zoned out and you've got all these laws and you're, I can't go this fast, and you get less paying attention. You're paying attention less and less and less,
and pretty soon the cars will drive themselves.
Well, they already are.
They already do.
Yeah.
Which it'll take a while for this to get here. It could eventually get here. We'll see. I have an anecdote about that though. I was gonna.
This is the car. Donkey.
Right. Exactly. The Tesla is like a herd of cows. So we were driving back from Guayaquil, drove through Cuenca. We're on the Google Maps. I'm with my wife, 2 kids in the back. We got tons of suitcases and luggage. There's a whole mess in there. Anyways, Google Maps tell us to take a left in that street. We take a left. There's a police there, and he's like, "Come over here, get over here." And he stops us. He's like, "Oh, you just committed an infraction. You can't take a left on this street, right?" And he's like, "We'll have to take the car, blah blah." Anyways, he starts giving us a hard time, and we're just like, "We're so sorry. We're not from here." I show him my driver's license. We show him we're on Google Maps. It told us to turn here. Really apologizing. And the guy said, "Okay, I understand you're not from here. Just be careful next time," and he let us go.
Yeah.
Which I thought was great. And I feel like here is one of the things where if we would have been like, no, and started like arguing with them, they'd be giving us a really hard time.
Absolutely.
But because we were like apologizing and really friendly and understanding. They just let us go. So, anyways.
It's a great point. Like, humanity goes a long way here.
Right.
Don't puff up and get upset and be like, don't do that. Just talk to the guy. Just talk. Just be nice, and they will help you out.
Yeah, it's true.
Yep.
All right. What do we got next? Gas prices. Well, I noticed that right away in Canada, and I think the U.S. is somewhat similar. There might be some differences, but I did the math in U.S. dollars. A gallon of gasoline in Canada was about almost $6 U.S. At the time when we were there.
What is it in the States right now? Three or four,
Yeah.
maybe.
It was just around $5.75 actually, the exact math. Here is $2.40 U.S. a gallon. So almost 3 times more, 2.5 times more.
And it went way up here recently. It
Right,
used to be
less.
set at like 160 or something for a long time.
Yep.
Now it's 240.
Yeah.
What about diesel? Did you check diesel?
Yeah,
prices?
diesel. I mean, we both have diesel trucks. It's $1.75 a gallon here, whereas in Canada it was just around $4.30 U.S. a gallon.
Oh, the diesel went up here too? Oh, okay.
$1.75 though.
Yeah. I remember when it was $1. I didn't even realize it.
Right.
Went up,
Yeah, it's gone up a bit, but you know.
And those are set prices. Those are like government set
Right.
prices.
That's a difference. I didn't even know that about Canada. Is you go to different gas stations, they might have different prices. When we're driving with my mom, she's like, "Oh yeah, let's wait. They have better price over there." I'm like, "Really? They don't have the same price everywhere?"
Oh, I love this.
It's so good.
I love this, bro.
It's so good. Bull horse.
Oh gosh.
All right. I think diesel is even more expensive in the States though.
I think you might be
It's
right.
was
more
telling
than
me it's
gas.
Like, yeah, it's more.
It's more than
in
gas.
Canada
yeah.
somehow it was less than gas. It's
Yeah,
subsidized
it's all the
to some
subsidies and
extent.
the taxes
Right,
and all that stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, another interesting one, I think. Somewhat interested people, but interested in that. A lot of people here will have psychedelic plants, psychoactive plants growing
Yeah.
in their yard, around their house. It's very common to have the San
Plant
Pedro
medicine.
cactus.
San Pedro, yeah.
Right, which is like similar to the peyote, and it's it's got mescaline in it. It's a cactus, and it has similar
Cactus, yeah.
similar properties, similar things like that.
Yeah, I mean, it's endemic to this area.
It's all over the place.
It grows everywhere, right? Like, yeah.
Yeah, I mean it grows wild in the mountains. They have huge bunches of them
All
growing
over,
wild.
You pretty
People
much
will-
can't walk a large property without seeing at least a few of those plants, and sometimes big patches of them.
Yeah.
So back in the States, you can have your gardenias in here, and you can have your San Pedro.
San Pedro. Yeah, and
Well, and medicinal plants too.
Yeah.
sure,
Yeah.
yeah, lots
It's
of
Medicinal
growing
herbs.
everywhere. Like, yeah.
lots of medicinal-
Wild medicinal herbs.
Right.
When,
What I was gonna say about San Pedro is like it grows everywhere. Locals will plant it as like a protector. They actually say,
Like energetically or something.
yeah, around the house they'll have a plant. A lot of times they'll just
No, it's
grow.
true. You'll
grow
see
one.
that a lot. Yeah.
And but it's not like people are like going out of their way cutting it and like drinking San Pedro. They
Not,
could.
not often. no.
Every single day, someone could go out and find San Pedro and get really high, really high from it. And it's not part of the culture here. It's not common. It's more like shamans will do that
Yeah.
occasionally, right? Which is interesting. And then there's another plant. It's the datura or the trumpet flower.
Oh, that's
that
everywhere,
grows
too.
along the roads. That grows everywhere. That's very strong psychedelic.
Yes.
It's like dangerous almost. Actually, it is dangerous.
It's one of the most wild psychedelics. Yep.
Yeah, and that grows people's yards. That grows on the side of the road. Like you can go smell it.
Right.
I think that's angel trumpet. I think. Is that
Angel
right?
trumpet.
In-
Right.
in
Yeah,
English?
that's
Is
one of the
that-
names. Yeah, it's got the trumpet flower. Sometimes it goes up like this.
Right.
Yeah.
But there's all kinds of other medicinal herbs that are
Tons.
just wild. Tiff had a little stomach thing like a month or two ago, and I was asking a local friend, and he's like, "Yeah, let's just go." He came and picked me up, and we're driving. We're gonna go to the florist or to the place where you
Botanist.
botanist or I don't know what's it called. Is that right? Yeah,
Nursery.
whatever. Nursery. Yeah, I think
Oh,
I
I
did
see.
that right. Yeah, I couldn't remember. That.
I got so many synonyms, man. Really keep going.
We're gonna go to the nursery to buy some, and then he's like, "No, like these grow wild," and I'm like, "Oh," so we're stopping on the side of the road, and he's like, "All right, grab a little of this, dig this out," and I'm like, "Okay, cool,
Yeah. Yeah, this is very much part of the culture here.
Yeah.
People know about the medicinal plants, the medicinal properties of different things. That's all they used to use before pharmaceuticals came here. All their grandparents were using pretty much strictly plants.
I mean,
right?
the whole world did that at one point, right?
True,
But,
true.
but yeah, it's still alive here, which is awesome.
Very true. All right, next one. Just food prices in general. I mean, I hadn't been back for 11 years, so inflation has shown its head all over the world. But yeah, when we first of all, the airport's unbelievable. You can't get airports are.
I love this.
Great. But yeah, just overall, food is so cheap here, and it's so good and fresh and local. And over there, an avocado $2. You get 4 or 5 for $1 sometimes. Mangoes here are ridiculously cheap over there. And we wouldn't buy any of the
And
same
they don't
same
taste
things.
good either.
Yeah, fresh food. The things that I noticed could be sometimes comparable, even a little cheaper, is like processed food.
Yep.
Oh yeah, junk food.
Junk food,
Junk
processed
food's
food.
cheap,
It's
right?
cheap.
Yeah.
Chicken too.
Yeah.
At least in the States, like you get chicken cheaper there than here.
Okay.
But
interesting.
it's-
No,
No?
no
A
way.
whole chicken here is like $10
No
normally.
way.
No?
I don't think so. No.
All right.
Chicken, like
Per
if
pound?
you're- Yeah, I mean, if you're gonna go eat,
You see chicken. I'm not talking crap chicken.
Oh, crab
back home.
chicken, yeah, crab chicken,
yeah.
sure.
Factory
Like
farm chicken.
terrible chicken back home. I think isn't it? I see advertising like 69 cents a pound, 79 cents
Oh,
a
I don't know.
pound,
About
99
actually,
cents a pound.
I mean, you could get like garbage,
Maybe I'm wrong, but-
garbage beef that way too.
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know,
yeah.
$1.09 a pound or something for
Oh, wow.
trash.
Really?
$1.99.
Right.
And
I mean,
on sale or something.
Right. I mean, I wouldn't eat it.
right.
But
Right, but you can
anyway,
eat, you can go out and go to fast food, junk food. Like that's the cheap stuff in the States. Like you go to McDonald's. I don't know if they still have a dollar menu, but you can go buy a $5 meal at KFC or
Right.
McDonald's or Subway or
which
any of that
which
stuff.
for here is an expensive meal.
Or $8 it might be.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's a cheap meal in the States.
Here, KFC and McDonald's are like luxury
Right,
restaurants.
right.
They're like,
They have this thing at the KFC in Loja. It's called a Ken Taco, and it's a chicken. It's like a breaded chicken breast that they fold up and they stuff the meat or the cheese and lettuce inside it, and they call it Ken Taco. And everybody was like, "Oh, they got the Ken Taco!" They were excited about. All the locals were excited about the Ken Taco.
Yeah.
that just makes me sad.
Yeah. Yeah. Food prices in general. I was gonna say.
But I mean, you had a little sticker shock. Is that what you're
Yes,
getting
for
at?
sure.
Yeah.
For sure. No, we'd buy like 4 things. It'd be like $40 or whatever. You go to the store, like, what do we get for that much? Almost nothing.
And only the
Here you
kids
get
ate.
the whole week. Only the whole week's worth of food for like $40-$50. Fresh produce. So that's a big thing. The other thing I was gonna say is like we would buy water. We didn't want to drink tap water. We try to avoid fluoride and chlorine and other things. And we go to buy water, and I noticed like Coca-Cola was cheaper than water. Or like processed sugary
Right,
juices.
true.
Like
I
cheaper
never
than buying
thought about
water.
that. It's
Yep.
true.
Like gosh, we were getting like no calories, and we got to pay for this water. We could like buy other things. So I thought that was a bit of a shock at that point. I was like, oh.
Did you guys cook a lot? Did you eat out? Did you do a mix of both or?
We cooked more than eat out.
Yeah.
Yeah, we cooked a lot more than eat out.
I mean,
for sure.
you go broke doing this stuff back home. Right?
Right.
Every time I go back to the States, I come back with 10 grand less money.
Yeah.
It's absurd.
Yeah, it was expensive. Everything there was more expensive for sure. Taxis, I didn't put it on the list, but you take a taxi for like 5 minutes, it's like $10-15.
Right.
Here it's like $1.25.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. What else we got here? Manicured streets and lawns versus dirt roads, rustic dwellings, and fruit forests.
Yeah.
You guys want to comment on that?
I mean,
Pretty much says it all.
you just did. It's true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I noticed like as we landed in Guayaquil, we started driving, so we drove from there to here. Ecuador is somewhat run down, like compared to like Canada and the U.S., Western world. People will paint things and make them look nice. At least where we were. I mean, it was Victoria, Vancouver Island is a beautiful city. I mean, they keep things very, very well maintained. Whereas here, you got buildings falling apart, you got potholes, you got roads that are collapsing, half of it. And these types of things, it could be a bit of a culture shock if you're. Whereas if you live here for a while, it's like it becomes normal. It doesn't bother you.
It ends up being part of the charm.
Right.
Really. But yeah, I mean, and there's also places like that. At least in the U.S., half the country looks like that at this point. Yeah.
And there's something also different about the culture I've noticed here is, it kind of relates to what you mentioned in a couple of the other points. So like with the manicured lawns, like that's a priority for people, not a garden.
Right.
The manicured walkways and roads, like there seems to be like more of an emphasis on the outside of the house and what everyone else sees in the United States. Where here, you can see stuff that you'd be walking down and you'd be like, oh, that looks run down or that looks overgrown. And then you go inside and it's this immaculate house and this amazing garden that's manicured but it's not public facing. Like they keep it private. Like so the public facing stuff is like
Yep.
And the private stuff is like, wow, like that's really well done. And then at the States, I mean, I'm sure there's great places in the States too that are, run down on the outside and manicure on the inside, but it just seems like there's such more of an emphasis on the outside in the United States versus
and that's just a cultural value, right? Like people will take their money and spend it on things that are important to them, like sending their kids to schools overseas, or or buying properties that they can hand down to their children, or but just bettering their life in one way or the other. They're not putting so much emphasis on the luxury car, the luxury house, the luxury vacation. That mindset is much more of a Western mindset.
Yep.
But yeah, for me, right, like some of that stuff is what I just love about this country. You drive down the road and there's a donkey and there's some cows and there's horses and there's a guy carrying out his sugar cane and there's, the chaos of sort of the Latin American experience, and everyone's nice and everyone's friendly and you can work with people and talk to people and the cops are manageable and everything, it's just a totally more relaxed, free-flowing experience than it is everybody uptight and upset about everything and ready to fight with each other about everything. And if the lawn is 6 inches too high, you've got what do they call them? You've got Karen, right? You've got a Karen ready to give you a ticket at and bring you up at the next whatever meeting. And
that's a great point. Like it seems like a good analogy is like it seems like in the my last 4 or 5 years in the States, it seems like if we look at it as like a spring, like society is a spring, it looked like it was getting tighter and tighter and tighter wound, and that's like a much looser wind here. It's like less wound. It's less ready to explode here. Like people are less on edge, more at ease, where in the States it seems like, man, people are just waiting to and I even felt that when I was back last time driving, because I don't drive here, so I don't even have the but then even somebody like cuts me off and I'm like, oh, I'm gonna speed up and like try and block them. I'm like, what am I doing? What am I what am I doing? Why am I doing this? It's so silly.
And it's not a value judgment, right? That's the other thing too. It could almost sound like we're talking crap about where we're from. I love the U.S., right? And there is real perks to life back home
100%.
Because everything's orderly, right? And people show up on time. And you've got Amazon.com, and there's convenience, and there's
100%.
There's all this. You go to customer service, like you mentioned, right? Is way better, and there's all of these things that are convenient. What we're trying to do with this podcast, right, is show you and tell you what life is really like here, so that you can decide like this sounds good to me, or that stuff would drive me crazy. I think I'll stay in Kansas City, right? Like so that's the idea. It's not a value judgment, right?
I love going back to the States.
I do too.
I love going back. I love visiting family and friends. I love being part of that culture for periods of time. I just prefer this. That's really it.
Yeah. Very good.
Cool.
Yeah, the last one I had on the list, and there's more. If you guys have something else you want to bring up, please feel free to do so. The last one is I noticed, and this it sounds silly to you guys as well, but I noticed everyone in Canada, the U.S. is, glued to their screen, looking at their phones, doing something, watching something, listening to something, texting, swiping, stuff that, of course, people still do here.
Oh, yeah.
They do here, but much less.
Yeah.
There's a lot of older Ecuadorians here that don't have smartphones.
True.
Yeah. They don't even know how to maneuver a smartphone. We took a taxi from Guayaquil, from the airport, to our destination. We get in a taxi. He's like, so where are you going? I'm like, oh. Give him the streets and stuff. He's like, oh, okay. Yeah, I know where that is. And then I'm like, you don't have like a GPS or No, I just have this. He shows me this old 10-year-old phone. Like, no GPS. That's a big city, right? He knew where to go.
Huge.
I was like, okay, I'm going to look on my Google Maps. I want to make sure he's taking me to the right place. But yeah, so it's not uncommon for people here. Just people are not as glued to their devices.
Right. And that's in public. Even when we were in Mexico, so we went to a resort in Mexico, and people, even on vacation, they're walking around like this, like with their phone, like walking around, like at the resort, like this. Kids at a, sitting on the side, like they have all these things to do, activities, and there's kids sitting there sharing videos, and I'm just like, what happened?
Yeah.
How did this happen? Like,
Yeah.
this is just normal now. Like, people don't even look at each other.
It's wild.
Yeah. It is wild. Yeah, and in all fairness, it's happening a little bit to the younger generation here. For
Oh
sure.
yeah, no,
Right?
definitely.
And
Yeah.
I spent way too much time on my screen.
Oh gosh,
I
we're on our
do.
phones all the time. Yeah.
Work and stuff. But hey, yeah, it was a breath of fresh air to see how people here, they look at you in the eyes, they shake your hand, they want to make conversation.
Oh, it's great.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
Dude, I love it. Like in the city, like in the Chicago, people sometimes won't even look at you or look away, or they'll cross the street if they see somebody walking towards you. They'll go to the other side, or they're in their phone and they're not even paying attention that you're there.
Yeah.
No,
Here.
I had this wild experience when I went back home for the holidays. I may or may not have shared this previously, but I was in the Northeast U.S., flew into New York, spent some time in New York, Massachusetts, Vermont for a couple of weeks. And at one point, I'm in Vermont, and I'm driving from southern Vermont to northern Vermont. For those of you familiar with the state, I stopped in, I want to say Montpelier. Honestly, I don't remember. There's some food co-op, right? There's like a health food store that supposedly is this really good health food store that somebody told me about in this town. So I pull off the highway to go buy some coconut water and some kombucha and drop $200 on drinks that I would spend $5 for here. Some juices, some fresh juices for $10 a pop. Yep. And I walk, and Vermont is an interesting place, right? I grew up there. It's kind of a mix between sort of old school farmer redneck types and ex-New York hippies, right? Mm-hmm. That's kind of like the mix of the state. And it's a very, it's known to be a very liberal state. It's sort of a hippie area, right? It's kind of, people are very much into gardening and organic and hugs, and it's like a place like that. At least when I grew up, it was a place like that. And I walk into this supermarket, and man, it is. I took a minute just to appreciate how different the vibe was. And this is this Christmas, like this is 6 months ago, versus what I grew up in, and how different that is to here, right? It's like I live in this town here, almost kind of like what it was when I was growing up in rural Vermont. Everybody's kind of happy. They're enjoying life. They're interacting. They're going to the farmer's market. They're, doing cool stuff with their kids. They're kind of doing that. And now what used to be that where I'm from is kind of terrified and not looking at each other, right. and have this sort of like this kind of thing going on. And they're hushed tones, and there's all this weird vibes and kind of fear. And it's like, whoa! For me, it was like, wow, this is different. It's, Yeah,
there's, a perfect example of that is like when we go back to the States a couple times a year and we come back, we have a taxi driver that we use frequently for that trip, to pick us up at the airport and bring us back. When he's a taxi driver, I know him now well, I know his family after 2 years, but when he picks me up from the airport, it's like, bro, and it's a bro hug, and it's, like my taxi driver is like, that's the relationship. How was the trip? It's awesome. It's not like, would you hug your taxi driver in New York or Vermont? Like, no, but
he wouldn't be your taxi driver anymore after that.
Yeah.
Guys, give us a like, give us a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel. Thank you for tuning in. We appreciate your time. July 21st, we'd love to see you down here. We'd love to hang out with you for a Vilcabamba lifestyle retreat. October 15th. Yep. Save the date. That is our first, I don't know what we're calling it. It's a health retreat. It's a Abundant Living Ecuador hosted health retreat. It is going to be absolutely incredible. This is going to be one of a kind. I don't think there's ever been a health retreat like this on Earth, quite literally.
Wow.
I'm saying it. I'm calling it. I'm
It
calling
is.
my shot right here. Some of the best health practitioners you will ever meet live in this valley, and we have designed an incredible 14-day experience. October 15th. Save that date. All that promo material will be coming out. I'm going to say in the next, I'm going for it, Brandon. I'm saying the next 10 days. Hold me to it. Comment below if I'm lying to you. And we'll see you next time, guys. Thanks for tuning in.
We hope to see you down here one day. Come on.
Sorry,
now.
I know. I just
You
realized
can't.
I said
You
that. I'm
can't.
like, oh crap, I screwed
Nope.
up.
Yeah, you got to do the right
glad you-
one. Carl's back, man.
You're right, 100%.
Carl, how do we do it?
We hope to see you here one day.
So until then,
See you next time.
woohoo!